When you face something like this experience, it will give you a much, much greater understanding to explain things. Now, the things that's happened in my life, I really don't wish upon my own worst enemy because it's really extraordinary. When you consider my last video about death and going through the death experience, there's no fun about it. And what I come to learn and the way I come to learn, I don't wish that upon anyone. But there's even more, something far deeper that I want to share with every single one of you. Okay, because this will give you a much, much deeper and greater understanding. When God chose me, right, when I was reborn, when I was chosen to do what I'm sitting here doing today, resurrecting humanity back in their primal state to use their natural organic motor skills, when I was chosen for this very path, I had to revise my perception about every single thing I ever come to learn about my life, and every single thing that I come to learn, period. I had to revise my perception about everything I've gone through myself and understand what I didn't observe and what I wasn't paying attention to. To wake up from amnesia is one hell of an experience where you've got to revise everything about what you didn't observe in your life and you missed because of the voices in your mind that controlled you all the time, so you didn't see it. Now that's hard to believe in, but it's true. And there's nothing to fear here because it gives you much greater understanding with a total different perception that you never had before in your life. Now you're thinking differently and you think outside the mind spiritually, and you go back to try and understand why you failed in every single thing you failed. When you were in the rabbit holes, when you were in the tunnel, when you didn't get it. Now you got it, you look back and realize why you didn't get it and what it was you missed so much that was very crucial in your life, right? So I want you to consider something, okay? I've made a lot of videos where I've said, when we go to prison, we find freedom in prison we can't find outside. Now that's something everyone should really pay attention to, no matter what. How do you find freedom in prison you can't find outside? Like, how do you even understand this perception? Well, you see, when we go to school, we get educated with voices in our mind, and then we suffer the human conditions throughout our life, right? And when we come to jail, we realise we're not in our right mind. Because when you go to jail, you live in a concrete jungle where there's no government authorities or education system, no greed, power, temptation, control every aspect of your life, no modern technology, no gadgets. So we live equal to the same clothing, equal meals in a family environment, a concrete jungle where only the eldest lead us and takes us under our wing and show us the ropes. And in there it's a family environment because everything you live with outside to be egotistical in a competitive field and a marketing strategy and psychological with a high IQ doesn't work in there. You've got to start using your moral values in the right place when you go in there. It's the only way this place survives. And what happens, it's a shock to the system because you're very psychological when you come in. Very egotistical, very self-centered, very, very judgmental, and you don't even realize it. So you hit a brick wall in here where it doesn't work like this. And you have to use your moral values like your family, your mum and dad, your sisters and brothers at home, and only those tools work. And everyone can feel instinctively and not mentally with those tools. So it becomes an instinctive environment, and it becomes all about love, loyalty, honor, respect, moral morals, inspiration, encouragement, because you can't lie to one another. You can feel the truth when you're really close up in an environment like this and you're observing things. That's why they often say that you can open up the door some days and cut the air with a knife because it's full of tension. We can feel things with our body cells, and we're more alert, alive, awake and aware because we have to be. We're living with our worst enemies. And then we learn to live with them. And we learn more about a person in 5 weeks when we learn about our best friends in 5 years because we're living with them. And it's a big spin to the mind. But you see, what happens is something very basic. When you're a child from 0 to 7, you mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7, right? You had an outside influence, a light bulb idea that tells you 1,000 words of God in your life. And you weren't confused with any voice in your mind. Okay, you pump with adrenaline, right? No confusion, no frustration. Then you go to school and start thinking differently, and the voices come into your mind that tells you to do it all the time and don't do it, and you argue with yourself. And so when we come to jail, we often say when we take drugs because we've got demon in our minds, because we discover that the voices in the mind are ultimately designed for human extinction, the biggest mental health research ever conducted in global history. So in prison, what happens is that we have the voices in the mind controlling us just like everyone else does. That's why people that come to jail, 86% keep coming back. But people after 7 years or more, 97 never come back. And that is where you have to understand things differently. After 2008, they used to think you got mentally institutionalized in prison and couldn't readapt to outside because of this reason. But that's not true. What happens is you go off the grid and get away from people because you choose not to go back. They discover you become mentally institutionalized going to school with voices in their mind that ultimately sign you in extinction. And when you go to prison, you discover this because when you're in there for 7 years, you're in for a cycle of life of 7 years. And what happens is that you find freedom in prison you can't find outside after 7 years. Because it takes 7 years, right, to go back to your primal state to think instinctively and not think mentally again. And then you start to explore the wonderful God-given gift you got from 0 to 7 when you mastermind a computer game. You think instinctively, you don't think mentally anymore. For that reason, right? But it takes 7 years, right, to get out of the mindset we're programmed into in education and then get back out of it again, like 0 to 7. And then you trust your natural organic motor skills to think instinctively and not mentally. And so when we come out of prison, we have a lot of confidence, right? And people find us very threatening because we're more confident, right? We have our primalis in the right place, and we always come out with the truth to the masses because we don't want to go back to prison. So we get off the grid. We can't handle being around other people because it's like going back to prison with the voices in our mind again. And that's why in the documents on cognitive programs, right, in all these programs all over the world, they discovered that our documents very clearly states we have voices in our mind, and now we're free from that. And in cognitive programs, we can understand our moral values in the right place and the empathy and remorse, and what kind of dominant effect it has upon our family, loved ones, friends, and ourselves, and our victims, right? Because we dwell on it every day and do our head in, right? And we really face those consequences with guilt, with our moral values in the right place, and it really hits us hard, rock hard in ways it never has before. We reflect on everything and we think, my God, what are we doing here? And the only thing that we have left is our moral values in the right place. And the only thing we think about is every moment that we created, that we treasure the most. All of a sudden, materialistic things and everything else is gone, and you don't care about that. You've lost everything. But it doesn't matter to you. What matters to you is every moral value. So your moral values, you hang on to that bar, and then we start to live in a time where time still life preserves instead of being fast-tracked into nowhere, because that's what we used to be, like the world is outside. Fast-tracked into nowhere, thinking too much, judgmental, egotistical, and competitive, and you're not using those tools anymore. So you start to live in a time where time still life preserves, and that's proven in DNA study. We can preserve life in our DNA when you're outside the mindset we live in, and then you're free from the human condition, which is the voices in your mind. And you don't think like that anymore. So you don't want to go back to it when you get out because everyone else thinks this way, right? So you don't want to go back to that because now you explored the wonderful gift that God gave you from 0 to 7 and you understand how to think instinctively and not think with the mind. So you don't want to go back to that. Now, when I went outside, I started to blend back in again, right? And you know what? The more I did, the more voices came back in. So I was going back into prison. Then I died in 2012 and that's how I escaped this. And that's why I go into a lot of details about this. What happened to me then is in that video that I just made, not the last one with Christianity, it's a relationship. And it's about having a relationship with those tools because that's what you discover. But what happened to me when I died, right? You'll understand this. But here's something even more extraordinary I want you to think about. When Jesus said, went walk about for 40 days and 40 nights without food or anything like that, right? Okay, he discovered himself. That's when he discovered who he was, right? And he also beat the death experience. He faced the devil, right? Okay? Moses took 40,000 Israelites over the desert and the serpents was in the mind, right? And they had to think outside the mind. And it took them 40 years to rehabilitate that. 3 generations to think outside the mind with their natural organic motor skills. To have faith in their biological genes. To think outside the mind, not with the mind, instinctively. Not with the mind psychologically and mentally. And that's what people don't understand the concept. So I want to explain something to you that God put me through and put on my heart to revise my perception about that I need to share with you. I suffered the human condition from stress and anxiety, had bipolar and all these things when I was young for 10 years of medication. In 2008 in mental health research, I was cured from that and brought that to the biggest mental health research ever conducted in global history on ground level. So I want you to listen to me. I want to tell you the most important thing that cured me from this. Okay, and I want you to listen very carefully and share this with you. An experience so dramatic that I wouldn't wish it upon my own worst enemy, but the results is magnificent. I didn't even know this myself. What and how did I really cure myself in prison for 7 years from the human conditioning? How did I really do that? Here's the key factor. Here's the absolute key factor that you all need to be aware of. So in 2003, after I served 2 years in prison, okay, and I was doing my head in, okay, dwelling on all the things I'd lost and everything, my possessions, my house, my cars, my wife, my kids, my family. I lost everything, okay? I lost absolutely everything, and I was doing my head in for a couple of years. And I had more stress than I'd ever had in my life because I was losing everything and looking at 10 years in jail, right, and going through the sentencing process. So it was very dramatic and hard to face. You know, I was told I was getting about 2 or 3 years, I ended up getting 10. So that was a hell of a shock to the system when I was sentenced, because I didn't expect that. And, you know, it's shock after shock after shock, losing, and just going into a whole different mindset that you've never been before in your life. When you lose everything, all your family, lovers and friends, every single thing in your life, you lost the lot. And you face your bottom, right? And when you think you're at the bottom and you're trying to get back up and slowly moving back up, then this happens. I won't go into details because it's totally irrelevant, right? I went into the DU. Now, they put people in the DU in the hole, right, which is just a room with a bed and a little tiny window. Nothing, zero, nothing else. Just a bed and a little window, a toilet bowl, right, and a little tap for water. That's all you got. Okay, they call it the hole, right, but it's not really a dark hole. This is what it is. It's dark at night time like anything else is. But you're in this hole. We call it the hole. We call it the cave. When you're in there, they give you 7 days, because believe me, 1 minute in there is like an hour. And you do your head in. When you end up in there and everything's gone, and you're sitting there staring at a wall and nothing, you see how people react differently. Some scream and kick the doors for a whole day, right? Some's got to yell at you all the time and talk because they don't like being alone, okay? Some just go deadly quiet. So you see how different people react. But after about 24 hours to 48 hours, everyone's silent, right? Completely silent. They settle down in this environment. But they only keep you there for 7 days for a reason, because after that, it gets really deep, right? So you kick along with it. All you can do is pace up and down a little room or do a push-up. That's all you can do. So you pace up and down every now and then just to move your body. You have to move your body when you're like this. You have to get up and move and function. But after 7 days, it gets pretty tough, and then you release, right? Because you're looking forward to it all the time. You got a date, 7 days, so you know you got that date. Now, I got put in a hole for 9 months without a date. No date. Nothing to look forward to. I went in the hole for 9 months. In the first 6 weeks, I was put in the hole like this. Then after that, I had a TV, right? And I had a slightly bigger yard with a bigger yard to open up a door with during the day. But it's just like 2 cells. A cell, a small cell the size of a small, tiny bedroom, and then an exercise yard next to it with a door in between that's only open during the day, right? It's caged with no one there, okay? You're still completely alone. But what I want to tell you is this, right? And you might understand the concept, because I went through this concept. I was already in jail doing my head in for a couple of years, all right? Completely off the grid, out of the environment, right? With completely different skills, completely different environment, where there's no cops and politicians, no law society, nothing like that, no education system. Now the men in your yard and in your unit, the elderly controls the whole system here, because there's no governments and authorities here. So we have to use these values to get along, right? To keep peace and harmony like a family. It's the only tools that work. Some people, it takes a while to get it right, but they're the tools that has to work in there, because it's the only tools that can. So I'm already going through this for a couple of years, and then ended up in the DU, right? I ended up in the hole for 9 months. And this is where things get really interesting. So I'm sitting in there, right? And not to be honest with you, I was going through so much stress that I put weight on. I was 112 kilos. I was 112 kilos, okay? Like I'm only about 66 now. I was 112. Okay? And when you listen carefully, I was shit. I mean, I was at the bottom of my level. I mean, I was sitting there doing my head in after 3.5 weeks. And you know what? After the first week, it goes down. On the 10th day, it starts to go down. You're totally alone without any TV, no nothing, and you really hit the bottom of the barrel so deep in the bottom of the barrel, you go deeper every day. You go so deep, you've never been there before. It's like you got the devil burning right at your feet. And there's no other way to explain this. You have the devil burning right at your feet with the worst moment of your life and the most horrible things going through your head where you just know you're collapsing. You're going into hell. You're about to die now. You're about to die. You've got nothing left and nothing left to lose. And you couldn't be in a worse environment than being in this moment. And you face it head on, right? And you know what happens? I'll tell you what happens. You hit the brink. You hit the spot where you're facing the devil head on without even realizing you're facing death right in the eyes in your worst moment. And then you just sit there and give up. You give up. You've given up because there's nothing left. It's all gone. There's nothing left. There's zero left. And you give up. Right? But then you soul search, man. You soul search deeper than you ever have before in your life without even realizing you're thinking so beyond your mindset you've never thought before in your life. And you're facing the demons in your mind, man, head on. Every worst moment that you suffer from is the voice in your mind, and you're really dealing with it right now in the worst possible moment of your life where you lost everything and nothing else matters. And then you hit the bottom, man. Then you have the devil right at your feet burning you, man. And you're in that moment, right, where you're facing death in the eyes, man. You're facing the devil and death right smack bang in your eyes in ways you never even understood. I died in 212. I went through a transformation. God chose me. And when he put me through the whole perception of reanalyzing and revised my perception about everything I come to learn, he took me to this moment. Not the night I died. He took me to this moment. He said, son, this is how you found the cure of the human condition with a voice in your mind. This was the moment. And I'm thinking, what? He said, you didn't even realize, did you, son? That's when you were cured from the human conditioning, and you brought that in the mental health research in 2008. You didn't even know. No, I didn't. I actually didn't know, but I can explain it. I was gutted. I was at the end, man. I thought I was going to die. You know, I just thought, you know what? I'm fucking gone, man. I've got nothing left to lose. Zero. That's it. Everything's gone. I'm alone, man, and it's the end. Then all of a sudden, man, I'm just sitting there waiting, just not caring anymore. That's the key factor. I stopped caring, man. I stopped letting it control me. The fear of all this that's dragging me down to the bottom of the barrel and facing death head on, right, and facing the devil burning at my feet. Didn't care, man. I lost the fear. I didn't care anymore. I lost the fear. I lost the fear. Let me give it to you in a nutshell. And how do you explain this in a way people understand what real freedom is? Let me tell you something. You go from here, right? I get up in the morning. I try to do 2 push-ups. You know how bad I was out of shape? I couldn't even push a second push-up. That's how bad. I got 1 push-up and couldn't even push up for the second one. But you know, I didn't give a shit. I just didn't care, man. I said, you know what, I'll do it again in 5 minutes. And I kept doing it every 5 minutes that day. Every 5 minutes that day. And eventually I knocked out 2, but only 2. The next day I got up and knocked out 10. No problem. Right? 10. Like 5 times stronger the next day. And I did 10 every 5 minutes, every 5-10 minutes, all day. And I kept doing this. I kept doing this. I just kept going, didn't give a fuck. I was being reconditioned from the post-human stage. I was in the human conditioning, where I was being conditioned that much from the voice in mind. I now broke free from the human conditioning and started to recondition myself. with another mindset, right? Without even realizing it. But I started something, right? And that kept on going. In the 6th week, I got moved into a slightly bigger cell, like I said, with the TV. That morning, I got up 6 o'clock in the morning every morning, right? And I pumped out 6, 7, 8 hours of training every single day and watched TV in between. I felt so unbelievable. It was the best jail I ever did in 10 years. Think about this. The worst fucking moment of my life in prison turned out to be the best moment I ever had because I was alone. And every day I was alone. What really happened here every single day when I was alone? What happened here? What I never realized, I was thinking instinctively non-stop. I was thinking outside the mind non-stop. I was thinking with the natural organic motor skills. And what did I have? Soul searching every day, right? Talking to myself in the right mindset for an outside influence of my reality in the most positive fields, right? That's how God communicated. And I didn't even know it. I didn't even know. But God said, you were always following your instincts, son, and you were always listening to me. And this is the greatest moment that you were connected to me because you had freedom, son, from every single thing, and you were totally free. And what did you find out with nothing? When you had nothing. What did you find out when you had nothing? When you had nothing left to lose, what did you find out? You faced the devil, son. You faced it head on and you broke free from him. You broke free from him, didn't you? Because then you went back to your primal state, son. You started to think instinctively with the natural organic motor skills, with loyalty, honor, respect, moral, inspiration, encouragement. And I connected you with those feelings, didn't I? With your family values, the moments that you treasure the most that you created, with the same outside influence that you're dwelling on every day of life, your moral values, son. Holy crap. Holy crap. Do you get it? Because I got it. And believe me, I was still confused about this until now. Like until I was chosen, I was still confused about this. Shows you how powerful the mind is. It really does show how powerful the mind really genuinely is. When you understand that I come out of prison instinctively, it was like the world was going 7 times faster and I got a shock in my life. And then I started to mold back into it. Then I died because God said, do not fall back into prison and do not fall back in the mindset you live in. I put you through this process for a reason. Now come through this. Wake up from amnesia and discover who you are, why you're here, and what the meaning of life is. Because believe me, son, I created you for this moment to go through this so you know exactly what this means. Why I found out the truth in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, the same way you did, son. Holy crap, man. Now tell me, who on earth can explain that better than me? Maybe you should pay attention to me.